Hey guys, Dave and Len here. We just played Axis and Allies 1941. I've played this a bunch of times. It's a good game. It's got a few issues, but overall it's a good game. It's probably one of the best-selling war games of all time, if not the best-selling. I don't know for sure. I don't have access to those numbers, but every game shop carries this. It's essentially Risk, except where you have different unit types. Instead of just having infantry, you have infantry, tanks, fighters, bombers, submarines, destroyers, battleships, and so forth. So, like Risk, it's an area control game, so you got to move around the board and take enemy territories, and some of the enemy territories you tank give you production points, which you can use to buy new units later, and so forth. The game's fun, but it takes a long time to play. We just played where you just had to take one enemy capital and then you won. But there's another version of the game where you can play where you take two enemy capitals and then you win, but that's going to be a really long game. It took about 2 hours just to take for one enemy capital to be taken. The components, it's got miniatures, but there's kind of a disappointment factor in them. They don't look bad, but they only have two types of tanks. I think it's like a Soviet-looking tank and a German Tiger tank. So the Japanese have Tiger tanks and stuff, which is kind of weird. Mm-hmm. But overall, that's not the biggest problem with the miniatures. The biggest problem is there isn't enough of them. There isn't even enough miniatures to do the complete Soviet setup. So they have these little stupid tokens that you use. One of them represents one unit, one represents 3, one represents 5, and then if you have like 6 infantry, you'll put a red token beneath it to signify that there's 1 infantry plus 5 there, which I thought was kind of goofy. With the amount of copies of this they've sold, they can afford to have enough pieces for the game and not have to resort to these stupid cardboard tokens, but other than that, I think the game's good. What'd you think of it, Len?
Well, I was 10 years old. This would be the greatest thing that I've ever seen. I would enjoy it, because at the time I wouldn't have known too much about strategy. I won today because I followed the tactic that you always use against an alliance. You pick out the guy who's the weakest and you beat the crap out of him. And then when he's defeated, the other guy's saying, well, we're not going to have much of a chance. Like, that's when he gave up. So, one thing...
I didn't give up. We played until one capital was taken.
Yeah. And, what was it? One thing I was surprised, it's meant to be a simple game, but the production is a little more complicated. I would have preferred one where, at the beginning of the phase, you count up your production points, buy your stuff, put it in the production capital, all in one phase. Instead of you buy it, you buy it, then you get it at the end of the turn. To me, it seemed like eliminate one step. If we're going for a simple game, and actually, I'm surprised by now they haven't had like an edition where you have individual tanks, like, the Japanese have Japanese type tanks. Mm-hmm. For the Americans have Sherman tanks, and the British have I think like a Cromwell or something like that.
Or at least have enough playing pieces where you don't have to resort to using cardboard tokens in a miniature game. That's ridiculous.
Well, I was thinking some of the areas, if you had nothing but the plastic figures, you'd be looking a little crowded.
True, but I don't know. Just seemed like they should have had more.
Of course, I was thinking after a few turns, it was hard to buy back enough units to have a crowded map. I mean, my Germans were having a difficult time getting enough units. In fact, I had, after the second turn, very carefully plan to attack only like one area at a time. Mm-hmm. And I was losing things left and right. So,
yeah, this game is 2 to 5 players. In the 2-player game, one player plays the Russians, the Americans, and the British, and the other player plays the Axis, the Germans, and the Japanese. In the 2-player game, like I was playing the Allies, keeping track of 3 separate forces during the games gets to be a bit of a headache. I've played this 5-player. It's actually... The 5-player game is much better than the 2-player game because you just have one nation that you're in charge of, and you can focus on what you're doing instead of trying to focus on the entire world. You're just focusing on what that one nation does, and you'll play better and you'll have more fun in the 5-player version.
Yeah, because I was about to say that I was focused mostly on what the Germans are doing, and then at times, oh crap, I forget to do things with the Japanese. Like I think for 2 turns in a row, I forgot strategic movement for the Japanese.
Mm-hmm. One thing I've noticed with this game is either side can win, first off, but I'd say one of the common themes is the Soviets get taken out early in the game because they're surrounded by the Japanese and the Germans, and it's very easy for them to eventually take out the Soviets, so that's usually the first nation to fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was thinking maybe I should have the Japs attacking the Soviets, but the problem was the areas they were next to were non-production areas. And it's like, it seemed like a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I could go down to Southeast Asia and attack India. Or, well, first I get one province, the American loses a production point, always good. Then I can move to India where the British lose a production point. So I'm into... I'm helping the alliance. Because I was looking back later, I should have hit some of the islands, like Borneo and the
Yeah, those
Philippines.
don't give you production points, though.
They do, but, it's like one.
Or did they? Oh, was it one? Oh, okay, yeah.
So, and the thing is, the Japanese can't go too far, because if they can only attack one place at a time, and if they take too many losses, they have to wait a turn to rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
So... they start with a small army and it never gets big.
So you recommend it?
Yeah, I would say,
Yeah.
especially if you got somebody who's 10, 12 years old, they'll love it.
Yeah, I recommend it too. It's got a few issues, but overall it's good.
Yeah.
I can see why it's the best-selling war game that I know of. It's due to the fact that it's so easy to learn, and anyone could learn to play this game. Whether you've played a war game before or not, or even if you've never even played a board game, I'm sure you can figure out how to play this, so that's good.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we have a new review for you guys next week. Have a good evening.